Hello, we're going to be presenting our answers for the CAA 3 Proficiency Level Descriptors case study. First question was, what is Wendy's proficiency level in listening? Provide the evidence from the PLDS that support your findings. We said that we believe that Wendy is an advanced listener. She understood longer, more elaborate directions and conversations. She understood most main points and important details of instruction her teacher was asking her. She did rely on visuals and needed processing time, but overall, she responded to all his questions and directions in a timely manner without asking the teacher to repeat his questions. When the teacher was asking her questions about the robots, Wendy repeated the question and answered it without having long processing time.
Okay, so for the second question, it was, what is Wendy's proficiency level in speaking, and provide evidence from the PLDs to support your findings. We said that Wendy is an intermediate speaker. She's able to respond appropriately, but may take a longer response time. She's very aware and exhibits an awareness of the English language, but uses simple language, short sentences, and basic vocabulary to communicate with the teacher. We saw this in the video based on when he asked her about the date, she needed a little bit longer time responding to use the correct verbiage. And then again, when the teacher asked for more clarification on some wording between the words of to and at, and when asked, she still didn't answer with the proper word. This is why we put her at an intermediate level. She is able to speak English very well, but there's definitely room for improvement.
Number 3 asks, what language needs for listening and speaking does the classroom teacher need to be aware of when planning lessons to differentiate for students like Wendy in this case? First and foremost, the teacher needs to be aware of the student and how they react and respond to different situations. This student awareness and knowledge of students is important to differentiate instruction to help them. For listening, it's important that the teacher uses visuals, verbal cues, and gestures to support understanding. Increase wait time in order for students to process the information, and expect the occasional need to rephrase, repeat, or slow down for at students' requests if they need it. For speaking, it's important that the teacher allows sufficient wait time so the student can process and communicate their response. Provide simple sentences, answer choices, and graphic organizers for instruction on tests so the student can better understand it. Focus on the content of the student's response and not necessarily the pronunciation. And always keep in mind that the student may speak mostly in simple sentences rather than elaborate details.
Number 4, it asks, what types of foundations for listening and speaking should the teacher use that differentiates the delivery of the social studies content the ELL receives and the ways she can show her understanding during tasks that require speaking and listening. So for listening, we said that the teacher could slow down the instruction for Wendy. They could use visuals, verbal cues, and gestures to support understanding. They could also give Wendy extra time on her assignments to work. Wendy can show she understands by repeating instructions, repeating content delivered, responds to text during read alouds, and responds to class and small group discussions. For speaking, we said that the teacher can allow sufficient wait time so the student can process and communicate their response, provide simple sentences, answer choices, or graphic organizers. They can focus on content of the student's response, not the pronunciation. They can keep in mind that students may speak mostly in simple sentences rather than in detail. They can also assign oral presentations to practice using content-based terms and common abstract vocabulary. We can say that Wendy shows that she understands by responding to class and small group discussions, clear, concise responses, short response time, understand and put together a response in appropriate time, and use advanced vocabulary.
Okay, and so for the last question, what kinds of activities should the teacher integrate into the lesson that will develop Wendy's speaking proficiency during a social studies lesson. So speaking activities that the teacher could integrate into a social studies lesson would be to work in groups and have that discussion during an activity. The teacher could also have the students work individually or in groups to do an oral presentation in front of the class. Classroom discussions can also help Wendy and other ELL students by having a ball be passed around the classroom, and that each student would have to get the ball maybe twice and speak and respond to something to get like participation points that day. The teacher could conference with the students one-on-one, not just Wendy and the other ELL students, but the entire class, to not like specifically single them out. And then the teacher could also integrate peer conferences on a activity or group, having one student from each table group go to another and kind of conference with them on what they're doing for the activity and project. Thank you so much for watching.